is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the Euro and Copa America finals. Myself being an England fan, I did not enjoy that Euro final, but Italy, what are they, 34, 35 games unbeaten, so well-deserved champions there. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the Gold Cup. Well, just because the Gold Cup is going on doesn't mean that MLS stops. And joining me once again is the voice of DC United, Mr. Dave Johnson. Dave, how are you?
Doing well. Good. Getting ready for, this is, we had an intense match last time. Expect more. This has really become quite a rivalry.
It has, absolutely. And so, like I said in the intro, this is the second time you're joining me. And so I always say, like, you guys, play-by-play voices, you guys have the best seat in the house because you guys are right up there in the booth and you guys are really painting the picture. You're calling the game as you see it. So to get you guys to come on here one time is great, but to get you to return back, I guess I'm doing something right. So I really appreciate you, Dave, for coming back on.
No. It's a terrific podcast and I appreciate the time.
Absolutely, Dave. Well, the weather report in New York when we played the Red Bulls last week, that game started late because of thunderstorms. It looks like this game could potentially start late Saturday night because they're calling for isolated thunderstorms Saturday night up in Chester, Pennsylvania. You can never tell weather because, it is the summertime. So I remember it was probably this time in 2019, we had a game against Orlando and we waited for like 2 hours and then they finally called the game off. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen this Saturday against DC United. But, you can never control Mother Nature. But like I said, you're the play-by-play voice for DC United. And if people listen to the last podcast, they would obviously know that. But DC United, they took on Toronto FC in their last game. And, well, things have looked very, very positive for DC since the Union last saw them. Like you said, that was an intense game between the two teams. And United, since they last played the Union, they went 3-1-1 in the last 5 games since they played against the Union. And they currently sit in 9th place with 16 points with a record of 5 wins, 1 draw, and 6 losses. They have the same number of wins as the Union do and 1 less game played. So, like I said, you guys took on Toronto last game, and wow, what a game for you to call, Dave. 7 goals. I mean, you never see that in soccer. And Losada said we're making a little bit of history because that was the first time that DC United had ever scored 7 goals in a game.
Well, it was an emotional day. We lost a wonderful member of our DC family, Big Rob, Robert Gillespie, who was a supporter with the franchise, with the team since the beginning in 1996, and it was so wonderful of getting other people involved and helping them to become passionate about DC United. But you could argue no one was more passionate about DC United than he was, and sadly he lost his fight with cancer. So going in, had a sense it was going to be a special day. We knew the supporters were amped up to make it a special day, regardless of the opponent. The team was amped up. There were ceremonies honoring Big Rob before the game. They had a jersey in the team photo that said Big Rob and number 12 is the 12th man. So you had a sense, boy, we're going to see some special play today, but never could have imagined 7 goals and just 2 minutes in, Kevin Paredes scores. And that goes to Big Rob. There was obviously something special at play that Saturday afternoon at Audi Field. It goes to Big Rob because they played the way he liked to see DC United play, on the front foot, attacking, attractive soccer. And that's what they've been doing under Hernan Losada. I think about a loss to Orlando, 1-0. And as he said about the way Orlando kind of parked the bus that day, he said, I don't want to win that way. That's not how he has DC United ingrained in terms of attacking. His phrase is "vamos por más," meaning more, always wanting more, and they certainly delivered more. And that again, it just was a special day to be a part of the 7-1 win over Toronto.
Absolutely. And the thing I liked about that scoreline, I mean, look, the people that don't like soccer, of course, they always say, oh, there's no scoring in soccer. Yeah, 8 goals scored in one game. There's plenty of scoring in that game. But the thing I liked about 7 goals for DC is DC had 6 different goal scorers. And that's got to be so refreshing for a fan base and coaching staff to see that they have multiple players that can score at any given time, that they don't need to rely on a superstar to get all their goals. And Losada, I listened to his post-game press conference after that game, and he really hit it out of the park, talking about the attitude of the substitution players made. He said that they made him really proud. And look, 12 games in with Losada, DC are making, like I said, a little bit of history, 7 goals in a single match. And this is what DC United supporters have come to expect out of all these years out of a DC team, a team that's going to keep fighting for every single goal. And the last 5 games, DC fans have to be proud of what they're seeing with DC United.
Well, he preaches the collective, and that is everyone involved, and obviously evident by 6 different goal scorers, and including our old friend Mr. Own Goal, who got the 7th. But that's the key here. Story is, as you mentioned, their DC United's record as we speak in July. You're very much in the playoff conversation. This is the first year of Hernan Losada. We're into the first few months, and he came in. Players who thought they were fit, he said, we're not fit, and he demanded even higher standards in terms of conditioning, in terms of accountability, everything. And that's not easy to do when you're coming in. And it could also, you could find a situation where players, don't buy in and don't get on board. But that from day one, players have been on board, and it continues to be, that selfless play. It's not like you could say, all right, well, this is the DC United player you have to circle and look out for, because it really has been a cast of heroes. And, they're learning, still need to learn, or are learning that they always have the foot on the accelerator. Having said that, they lost to New York City 2-1 when they should have tied, because it was waning moments of that game, but they were still, instead of you're on the road, instead of trying to kill out the clock, they were pushing for it, and they got unbalanced after a counterattack and gave up the winning goal. But those are growing pains, as many supporters said, that, not that they like losing, but certainly you appreciate the way it happened. It wasn't that they were going for the win. And that's what they're going to, and it doesn't change. Obviously it doesn't change. In New York, it didn't change. They were on the road, but they played to win. They're going to come up to Chester and play to win. That's his style, and he doesn't care who the opponent is or where. That's the way DC United's DNA is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's something that all MLS fans, or just soccer fans in general, would say that they want to see their teams play. Like you talked about a little bit ago, Orlando City parking the bus after they get 1 goal. It's like fans don't want to pay to see that. It's like they want to see you always on the front foot, always attacking, wanting more and more and more. And just going back to Toronto, I do kind of feel bad for their supporters, because they get from a team that finished 2nd in the Eastern Conference last season. They lose their head coach to LA Galaxy. They hire Chris Armas, the former New York Red Bulls head coach, who was linked heavily in the offseason to DC United. And of course, Armas deserves criticism for the way that Toronto have been playing this season, and it was probably the right decision to get rid of him. But also, playing all your home games down in Florida, not in Toronto, not having that home crowd behind you, I'm sure that's really, really difficult for the staff, the players, to be away from their families, not to hear the supporters right behind them. But again, DC, look, nobody knew really who Losada was, and it's like, okay, this is our head coach, and so far through 12 games, this is something that I think that DC United fans can be very, very proud for, looking forward to the future. And like you said, 9th place, that's good enough for the playoffs. And I know we're right at the point for where some teams have 13 games, some have 11, some have 12. So it's a lot of games that teams have to make up. But DC, they're right in the hunt. And like I mentioned earlier, they have 5 wins, and so do the Philadelphia Union. And the thing that separates the two teams is the Union have a lot of draws. And DC, like you said, against New York City, they could have had a draw, but they were going for the win, and they were close for it. And Sean Johnson makes a save and makes a good throw. And yeah, nobody was going to get Thiago, the fastest man on the pitch. And you guys were unfortunate to give up that second goal, but you guys very much so could have been in Red Bull Arena and walking away with a point. And instead of 16, could have had 17. But yeah, like I said, fans got to be happy with the appointment of Losada, seeing this attacking football.
Yeah, no, it's been obviously the Toronto game was a tale of two coaches, really. Unfortunately, Chris Armas, terrific pro and had success with the Red Bulls, but he was in his first year with Toronto and they had not gotten it right. And, you could argue that if they don't lose 7-1, that he might still be the coach. But unfortunately, the 7-1 result is just too lopsided. And having said that, you do feel for all these Canadian teams that no matter how nice the hotel is and the food you're staying in, it's just an extended road trip beyond belief. And all these Canadian teams have had to deal with it. And it's no doubt it's been a challenge, and it's probably impacted the start to the season to Toronto FC, along with a myriad of factors. But for DC United, it's a real excitement to see what's going to happen next. We don't expect 7 goals this week, but the important thing is that they were not healthy at the beginning of the season. They've been gradually getting healthier. They're still missing Edison Flores, who was starting to show some of his best soccer with DC United when he went out with injury. But there's a real thing. All right, things are getting better. We're getting healthier, and that's going to be important for a congested schedule. And the other thing, and Philadelphia's obviously experienced this, is homegrown players. We've had situations where there's 6 homegrown players on the field at the same time, and the moments don't seem too big anymore for these young players, if they ever did, which is a real credit to the academy and Loudoun United, how they prep these players for time with DC United. So, you've got players like Kevin Paredes, Moses Nyman, who got, looks by the U.S. men's national team, and deservedly so. And that's encouraging, not only for DC United, but MLS.
Absolutely. So the last time these two teams played, DC and Philadelphia Union, on May 23rd, I feel like it's been years ago. And it was just a couple months ago. But last time these two teams played, the Union won 1-0 thanks to a goal to Kasper Schibelke right before halftime that saw the goal ruled off or offsides at first, but then VAR overturned the call and it gave the goal to the Union, which went into halftime 1-0. And the whole second half, though, like being a Philadelphia Union supporter, I can admit DC United dominated the whole second half, in my opinion. If it wasn't for Andre Blake making 4 saves in the second half, I think DC could have won on to win the game, at the very least, wound up with a draw. And when I look back at the stats and was rewatching the game, DC, they just put so much pressure on the Union in the second half, and the Union just couldn't get out of the whole half. The whole second half was played in the Union's defensive zone. DC, they had 17 shots this whole game, 11 just in the second half. It shows you that, look, they were down 1-0 going into halftime, and I feel like coaches always say that's like the worst time to give up a goal is right before halftime, and that's what DC United did. And so what did they do? They're like, okay, it's nothing. They're coming out with that mindset like we're a goal down, and they went for that thing, and Andre Blake, just being Andre Blake, kept the Union in this game. And every time that DC United had a corner kick while they had a free kick, who were the first people to the ball? It was DC United player. Now, they were always getting the head to the ball, but they weren't troubling Andre Blake. But look, that just shows the fight in the grid in these players that, just because we're down 1-0, just because we gave a goal that was ruled off sides, doesn't mean that we're going to lay down with our heads. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going and keep going. And that's exactly what DC United did against the Philadelphia Union the last time these two teams played.
Yeah, no, that's the way. Then it's going to be the way it is Saturday, no matter what the circumstances are. They play the full 90, give the full 90, and they've been able to, because they've gotten healthier and deeper, have been able to use the bench more, and bench players have made a difference. And with the 5 subs, I think, all teams are seeing a boost from that. And I think, especially for a league like Major League Soccer, playing in the months it has to play in, the summer months, that 5 sub rule, while it was created out of last year's situation, really is going to continue to help all teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't a fan of that, but now as we're a year into this and everything, like you bring up a great point. Right here on the East Coast, we're dying because of how hot and humid it is right now. And there's 5 subs come in handy now, Philadelphia Union supporters. That's the one thing we always complain about Coach Curtin. He doesn't use all 5 subs, and sometimes he only make 1 substitution in the game. So we definitely want to see our bench used a little bit more, especially for a player like Ali Bedoya, who's 34, 35 years old, running him out there every single game up until the 90th minute. Now, granted, Ali always wants to be playing, but it's like you're at the point in your career where if you get injured, you might be out for a little bit. It's like, I appreciate it. You're the club captain, but we have serviceable young players from the academy that can do a job. We've saw it with Quinn Sullivan against Chicago Fire, scoring that bicycle kick. Jack McGlynn's been getting a couple of chances. You have Cole Turner on the bench, who's only made one appearance, and that was last season for the Union. So that they have players that obviously they trust enough, because we just saw that a guy like Matai Orvats, who they signed last year for, it was reported, between 600,000 to 800,000 to come in here to fight for the number 6 spot. Well, they just sent him out on loan. So it tells you just how confident that this Union team is in their homegrown players. And so Jim Curtin in his press conference today, just the number one thing he just kept talking about is how it is a little bit worrying about this DC team, because he kept saying that they're just full of confidence. And you can tell that this isn't a DC team under Ben Olsen last season where they were struggling. They almost made it into the playoffs. This is a team that it's going to make it difficult every single game that they play for teams. And like Jim said, they're full of confidence right now.
Yeah, and it's based on the collective. There's not, one particular player that you'll point out, and they're going to be obviously missing Paul Arriola, who's such a part of the ignition to the team's offense. He's with the U.S. men's national team with the Gold Cup, and Donovan Pines, for that matter, the defender. But I think it was again, you feel for Ben Olsen last season, because the COVID season was just difficult on all teams in so many ways, and certainly, injuries played a tremendous role in DC United struggles last year, and that's what I'm saying. It's key. They didn't start fully healthy, but they're getting healthier. An Ola Kamara feels healthier. A Nigel Robertha, an off-season signing, he's now, it seems, at full health, and he's getting a bit of his goal-scoring groove. So maybe groove's an overstatement, but he's had a couple of goals and a couple like out of his last 3 matches. So everything's trending in the right direction. Now, the challenge is it's trending in the right direction, but each 90-minute game is its own chapter, and we know that. And again, Philadelphia, I watched their most recent game against the Red Bulls. I know they've not been chalking up a lot of wins, but they find a way to get points, and they're as good as it gets in Major League Soccer. So it's going to be a good game, I think, on Saturday.
Exactly. It's I'm expecting a good game, and that is the one thing. Like, it sucks that we're still dealing with COVID issues, because most teams are playing Eastern Conference teams. So I think we see you guys one more time, and I think that game's down in DC in August. So I'm looking forward to going to that game. Will be my first time down at the new stadium. I never even went to RFK Stadium, so I'm looking forward to going down and seeing Aldi Field and seeing what everything it has to offer. Everybody says it's a beautiful field, so it looks beautiful on TV. So to experience that in August, I can't wait for that. But going over just the injury report and whatnot, DC, like you said, they're out without Edison Flores with a hamstring injury. Donovan Pines is on international duty. Paul Arriola, who got hurt in the game against Haiti, but I think DC United and the national team said it was just tiredness. I think they said it's nothing serious. He's good to go. So after seeing Paul Arriola out for so long last season, I'm sure DC United fans, when they saw that he had to get substituted off, they're like, oh, great. One of our most attacking players hurt yet again, and this time it's not even with us. We got him back to full fitness. He was looking good for us and goes away with the national team. Now he's hurt. And I think the big thing for DC United, I saw Stephen Goff tweeted this out, that defender Brendan Hines-Ike is out with a hip injury. And the thing with Brandon is he leads DC United in 11 starts, and he's been a tremendous signing for you guys. I've been really surprised how well that he is at commanding the back line for you guys. He looks like a natural leader back there for DC United. So if he is going to be out for quite a while, I think that's a big blow for DC United. But then at the same time, it's the next man up mentality.
Yeah, no, indeed. I think the Hines-Ike signing, he's been one of the, as we talked about, they were not healthy at the start of the season, but you get this guy who steps right in. He had experience with Hernan Losada in Belgium. So he was a great bridge to help other guys get acclimated to the new system. So that's a negative that he won't be able to play because he has been solid beyond belief. He had an amazing goal in the first ever game against New York City. But the encouraging sign is Steven Birnbaum, played a couple games in the Capital Cup, which we just played against El Olense of Costa Rica here in Washington. So, yeah, you're going to miss Brendan Hines-Ike, but you get a Birnbaum back, you get a Briant back. Dewey Achim is back. So this is where we're seeing, okay, these guys have been out with long-term injuries, and now they can be a part of the equation, and we'll need them in this month of July.
Absolutely. And then for the Philadelphia Union availability report, Jack DeVries and Anthony Fontana, unfortunately, are still in concussion protocol. And Jack DeVries is a young homegrown player who hasn't even seen any time this season because he got a concussion in preseason. And so that's a guy that you worry about. He's been out for months now, still in concussion protocol. Anthony Fontana picked up that concussion against Atlanta in June, and he still can't get medically cleared. And then you're missing Andre Blake, Alvis Powell, and Corey Burke, all the international duty. Matt Freese, we know, picked up that red card against New York Red Bull, so he won't be available. And Jim Curtin in his press conference came out and said, with Jameer Montero, there's a player too. I totally forgot about him until now. He's going to miss this game too because he has too many yellow cards. So now you really start looking at your depth. So Jim Curtin said, Joe Bendick's going to be the goalkeeper in the back who, he's been in MLS for a long time, but he does scare me a little bit. And just going back to that New York Red Bulls game, Red Bulls should have been up 2-0. I forget who it was. They hit a ball and it was going wide, but Joe Bendick reacted so late to it. And I don't know if he really knew the ball was going out wide. He might say it was, but it really looked like Joe Bendick got beat on that, and Red Bulls should have been up 2-0. And so you obviously still have Olivier Mbaizo on the right, Jack Elliott, Jacob Glesnes as your two center backs, Kai Wagner, the left back. You see Jose Martinez, Liam Flock, Bedoya, and then Daniel Gazdag, the signing we made from Hungary, who made his debut against you guys back in May. This time, Jim Curtin said his more natural position at the number 10 will get the start at the 10 instead of playing up top as the striker like he did against the New York Red Bulls, which means Kasper Schmeichel and Santos will be the two strikers. Now, because of that, it's all of our attacking options off the bench with Corey Burke on, Sergio Santos having to get the start, Jameer Montero being there. And that does scare me a little bit because it's like, if we go behind, which we very well can go behind against DC United. I know our defense has been playing very, very well this season. We have a ton of clean sheets this season, but we're a third string goalkeeper. And when, you start getting on third string players, you're asking a lot for them. And DC United, like you said, they've been scoring a lot here lately. And when they have a lot of players that can hurt you, it might be a bad day for Joe Bendick. The one positive, though, is Jim Curtin said Elsinho is healthy. He's back from injury. He shall be able to play a couple minutes against DC United if we need him to play. So it's good to see Elsinho back on the bench for the Union. But, I do worry a lot because if we're chasing a goal, it's just going to be homegrown players coming on and try to get that goal. And where these guys don't have too much experience this season, where they can't play a ton of games with U2 because we're not in the league. So it's like whoever can schedule a friendly against us, then they'll get game time that way. But it's not an ideal situation for a homegrown player to get sent in there. Okay, you're a goal down, go make something happen. So I am worried for this game, and I know my listeners get on me all the time. They're like, stop making predictions. You're so bad at making predictions because I always give the wrong prediction. And I would want to say a Philadelphia Union win, but I don't see it. I'll say a 1-1 draw, but because of Joe Bendick and the errors I've seen him make the last couple of years, it scares me a lot. So if you told me that DC is going to win this game 2-0, 2-1, I wouldn't kill you for saying that because I could definitely see it that way as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's Major League Soccer games are almost impossible to predict, and didn't certainly predict a 7-1 result over Toronto. And quite frankly, knowing Toronto's mindset coming into that game, concerned because they were angry and frustrated, and there had been a bit of a rivalry between DC and Toronto. So I almost think it's a game between DC and Philadelphia. There's if anybody thinks they really know what the final score is, they don't. It's just I have no idea how it's going to play out on Saturday. So we'll just have to see. I think there's razor thin margins in this league. You look at obviously last time these two teams met, it was a 1-0 result. But this is a league of parity. It's not. You can't go. You think of a team like, all right, Cincinnati's struggling, and then all of a sudden they're not struggling, and they're finding it. And they could have beaten Columbus the other night, and they've had significant win recently. So That's what makes the league fun. It just, you look at both rosters, both teams are missing players. Who's gonna step up? I mean, look, Philadelphia still has Shabilko. He knows how to score. As I mentioned, Nigel Robertha's been finding the net of late, but DC United, that's not the way they're built, where they rely on one player. I mean, it's over and over again. Hernan Losada talks about the collective. He really believes, and why he believes in that is because DC United right now is not a club that's spending in the penthouse where it's got unlimited money to spend on players. Not because it's a cheap team. It's a team that just opened a brand new stadium in downtown DC. So there's you've got to be, wise with your signings, which they have, and Dave Casper and now Lucy Rushton, and you look at how they've, again, transitioned everybody from the academy to the first team. It's happened in Philadelphia and it's happening in DC. And because of that, you've got young, hungry players that are going to make a difference. So you don't know who's going to be the star on any given day, and that includes this Saturday.
Absolutely. And the last point I want to bring up is, you guys don't rely on a superstar. We don't either. And yes, I'm sure DC United fans loved having Wayne Rooney down there. But like you said earlier, when teams are preparing for teams, it's so easy for them to circle, okay, let's double mark Wayne Rooney. Don't let him get touches on the ball. When Zlatan was here, teams okay, let's double him. And look, these guys, it doesn't matter how many players you put on them because they're international superstars and they can find ways to put the ball in the back of the net however they want. But at the same time, too, I do kind of enjoyed not having a superstar on the team because I feel like every now and then when you get superstars in this league, it can divide the locker room. And I know reading a report on The Athletic, with Zlatan in LA Galaxy, there's a little bit tension in the locker room between Zlatan and some of the players and the coaching staff. So that's one thing that Jim Curtin always talks about is how we don't want the tension in the locker room here. We don't want one player that thinks he's better than the team. The superstar is the team, and that's exactly what it looks like for DC United. And it is fun watching these European players come over here and see what they have left to offer. You look a couple weeks ago. Gonzalo Higuain had a quote said that he was going to come into the league and smoke a cigarette and thought it would be a walk in the park. Yet it's been anything but a walk in the park for Higuain, and I think he definitely sees that the last two times that he played DC United, where you guys won both of those games, and Higuain was quiet in both of those games. So, yeah, it is cool to see the superstars come over here, but at the same time, too, it is awesome to see these teams not rely on one player, but to rely on each player on the team. But Dave, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast once again. I really, really appreciate you coming back. And like I said, you're a DC United commentator, but I know there's plenty of listeners that are former Towson State, not going to say Towson University for you, alumni that listen to this podcast. So Dave is also a Towson State alumni. So why not go ahead, give him a follow on Twitter. And Dave, where can people find you on social media?
At Dave J Sports, on Twitter. So I always love follows.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, had a blast having you on the podcast, and good luck to DC and good luck on the call this Saturday.
Look forward to the next time. Thanks.
And so typically, as you guys know, I don't release news segments when I do match previews. I always save that for match reviews. But there was two significant Union bits of news that I do want to bring up, and then one thing that's not that significant, and I'm only going to bring it up one time, and then I'll never talk about them again on this podcast. So let's just go straight into the news. Okay, so let's just go straight into the least significant out of the two major Union news that was announced, and it does feel weird saying the least significant. So you guys heard with me and Dave, I mentioned this guy once, but I'll bring it up again. Matej Orvac has been loaned out to Slovakian second division club that he used to play for, Železnične Podbrezova. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Close enough, maybe, who knows. That's what it looks like to me. But the Union announced that they loaned him out for the remainder of the MLS season, obviously, but he'll return back to the Union at the end of the 2022 season. So the 2021-2022 season in Slovakia. Once that ends, he'll be right back to the Union. And Matej signed a contract that runs out at the end of the 2022 MLS season. So the end of December that runs out, but then the club had a club option for a further year. Now, will they go ahead and activate that option? Who knows? But I know the Union last season were trying to find a club that would take Matai, and nobody wanted him. Nobody would take him, and I guess probably part of it was, okay, he wants to cover his wages. Not sure how much money that he is making in MLS. Actually, I probably should know. If I pulled up the MLS Players Association pay chart from last season, I could find out. I know it's not a ton of money, but look, let's face it, a guy who's played no games, no games at all for the first team, there's not going to be many offers for him, and he didn't even get game time for U2 when the Union would look for friendlies. So what does that say about Matai? I don't know. Jim Curtin in his press conference today said our track record is the best in MLS with that, meaning transfers. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Matai was a true professional. He just wasn't able to crack the roster. Now, Look, one, Jim's being very, very truthful with that quote right there. But at the same time, how much better is Matai than some of these homegrown players that are making the bench? I guess seeing him never make the bench for the Union this season when the Union's loaned him out so they can get Gazdag in here, I guess that tells you where the team rates the homegrown players over Matai. So it's a weird transfer all around, especially when you look and see that the Union almost paid $1 million for him to not play a single moment for the Union in the regular season. Look, only moment we have for this guy is one, when he meant to say successful season and he said sexy season, and two, he scored the game-winning goal in a friendly against Inter Miami last season. But other than that, it's like, who is this guy? Is he a real Union player? So good luck to him when he goes back to Slovakia. I guess he is technically there now. So hopefully he gets a lot more game time than he did here in Philadelphia. And hopefully he plays well, can restart his career. And if he plays well, maybe the Union can get some of the transfer money back for what they paid for him. They're definitely not getting it all because he's playing in the second division in Slovakia, where when he joined the Union, they were in the first tier. Then obviously they got relegated last season. Now they're playing in the second tier. So who knows? But we will say we hardly knew Matai, right? Maybe he comes back a better player, but I seriously doubt that the Union will ever play him again. The next bit of news I want to bring up is, all of you guys have seen this on social media, I am sure. The biggest signing that the Union have made this year, the biggest signing that they could ever make, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm sure there could be superstar players that you guys would say, yep, this is the biggest signing. But Ernst Tanner has signed a multi-year contract extension with the Philadelphia Union. That is outstanding, especially when you look and you see that multiple teams in Europe wanted Ernst Tanner. Jim Curtin, again, in his press conference said MLS teams wanted him. And when you look at MLS teams, I've got to think that it's probably the team that has money. I'm probably thinking of Inter Miami, Atlanta United, LA Galaxy, LAFC. Those teams were probably looking at Ernst Tanner and say, look, you want a war chest, we can give you that. You've done so well with the Philadelphia Union with the little bit of money that they've given you. Why don't you come here to a bigger market and spend all the money you want and let's see what you can really do. But Ernst Tanner wasn't fazed by the interest in Europe. He said it multiple times in his press conferences in the past where, look, I've done it before. The whole reason he came to MLS is he wanted a brand new challenge, something that he's never done anywhere else. And look, like I just said, LA Galaxy, LAFC, Inter Miami, Atlanta United, going to a team that has money. Yes, you have to learn MLS, but how much different is that than coming from a team in Hoffenheim? Now, I guess you can argue that Salzburg didn't spend a ton of money. Salzburg because they're really good at scouting talent. But look, if you wanted a challenge, the Philadelphia Union's a huge challenge when, yeah, we're in a big market, but we don't spend money like a big market team. And Ernst Tenner has done more than any of us fans could imagine. And Jay Sugarman had to say this. He said, "We knew when we hired Ernst, we were getting a top-tier sporting director who could take our club to the next level. Thanks to his leadership and buy-in from coaches, players, and the entire staff at the Philadelphia Union, we have experienced continued progress and enjoyed the 2 best seasons in our history. Our core values are player development, a pressing team, first, never die style of play, and commitment in innovation. Ernst has helped us turn those values into a winning formula that we believe can be a platform for long-term success. Additionally, Ernst helped us show young players that this club offers a pathway to their dreams of being professional soccer players in MLS and in Europe. We have signed 8 homegrown players in the first team under Ernst, and we were recently named the best academy in the country. With Ernst continuing at the helm of our soccer operations, we look forward to bringing Philly fans the thrilling soccer they have come to love." Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? It's nice to see Jay Sugarman show Ernst Tenner appreciation, but look, let's face it. Ernie Stewart, once he came into the club, from fans were really hopeful when Ernie took over at the club, and things didn't go the way that any fans thought that they were going to go. And he leaves us to go with the national team, and it's like, great, what are we going to do here? And in comes Ernst Tenner, and finding players like Kasper Schmeichel, Kai Wagner, Jameer Montero, you can argue. People said that Ernie Stewart is the one who had him on the player list. So is it an Ernst signing? Is it an Ernie Stewart signing? Who knows? But look, Jose Martinez is another one, and we were just talking about Matai Ortvatz. You're not going to have a home run on every single signing, so just to see Ernst Tenner find diamonds in the rough in these lower leagues in Europe, where we're not paying a ton of money, but they're contributing so much to this team. For us to sell Brendan Aarons and Mark McKenzie, to get good deals for them, to get sell-on clauses, Ernst Tenner has done a tremendous job. And just like we saw a couple weeks ago with Jim Curtin signing on for a couple more seasons, it's great to see that Ernst Tenner and Jim Curtin like working with each other. You don't see that a lot in sports where you have a head coach and you bring in a new GM, a new sporting director. Usually when you do that, the GM wants to fire the head coach, bring in his guys. But he said, you know, I'm going to give it a go with Jim Curtin. And both of those guys have been fantastic for the Philadelphia Union. And hopefully this season, just like the last two, hopefully it can be a successful season. Hopefully in a couple of weeks against Club America down in Mexico, hopefully the team makes us proud down there, and we could potentially be in a final in our first ever international tournament. That would be fantastic if we were. And the last bit of news I want to bring up is, you know, that radio station in Philadelphia, not going to name it. I'm sure all of you guys have seen it on social media, where they talk about the Philadelphia Union one day, and then the next day, apparently fans are backstabbing them for not giving the Union love. The one thing I will say, I'll make this short, sweet, and simple, is obviously you guys are listening to this podcast. You found out about this podcast. But for your friends, for your fellow members that want to hear talk radio, talk more about the Philadelphia Union, why not introduce them to podcasts? Look, there are so many podcasts. This one, there's Duke by the River, there's Dupey Brothers, there's It's Always Sunny, It's Always Soccer in Philadelphia by Kevin Kincaid. You have Sean Brace and Joe Tansey doing their thing on the radio. You have the Sons of Ben, the Pod, doing their thing. And the one thing I love about all these different Philadelphia Union podcasts, Views from the Bridge is another one, and you have Talk Dupe with Ryan. The one thing I love about every single one of those podcasts is, yes, we talk about the Union, but we all do something a little bit different. And there can never be enough Philadelphia Union content out there. And yeah, I'll speak for every single content creator. I don't think any of us mind that, yeah, there's 6, 7, 8 Philadelphia Union podcasts, 6, 7, 8 different content makers out there, because you guys, not all of you guys, but some of you guys want to hear the union talked about on the radio, and I get it, right? But they don't care. They won't give us the time of the day. And for your family and friends that aren't listening to these podcasts, why not recommend them? For all the people the last couple of days that have been recommending all of our podcasts on social media, I thank you guys so much, because let's face it, talk sports is a dying industry. Podcast is the new wave. You can find podcasts for every single subject out there. And so if they don't want to give the Philadelphia Union credit on the radio, fine. But there are so many Philadelphia Union content podcasts out there that should fill the void for people. We don't need talk sports radio. You guys have so many resources out there, because there are a lot of people out there that are dedicated in covering the Philadelphia Union, and if the quote unquote mainstream media doesn't want to do it, then so be it. And the last thing I will say is, like, you people that want to call up to the radio station, talk Union soccer, come on to this podcast. I love talking to fans about the Philadelphia Union. I have no problem starting at Twitter Spaces all the time if the interest is there, and taking calls like it's a radio station. I have no problem at all doing that. So just continue recommending every single Philadelphia Union content creators podcast, YouTube, whatever it is, whatever they do to cover the Philadelphia Union. Continue to recommend it, because we want to continue to give you guys just amazing content. So that's all I got to say on that subject. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on social media, follow at Free Kick Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Go ahead and check out the podcast by searching The Free Kick. Wherever you guys get your podcasts, we're everywhere. And check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Again, you got to get active with that. I've got to, get more consistent again, right? With making podcasts and not slacking, right? 10, 11 days since I last released one. You guys never gave me fishing recommendations, so I won't talk about fishing anymore. But yeah, blame the lack of episodes on fishing. But we will see you guys after the DC United game this Saturday. Again, thank you to Dave Johnson for once again joining me on the podcast. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.